Hello, Outperformers. I hope this finds you well. For about the last week or two, I've been doing a ton of reflecting on 2022, and I'm sure you probably have as well. And anytime that I'm doing that at the tail end of a year, I always like to look at it holistically, meaning I like to look at it personally, professionally, athletically, and think of first, what are some of the wins that I got? What are some of the things that I'm most proud of? What's maybe some unfinished business and some things that I'd like to cross off the list in the next year? And just overall, how am I interpreting my year on a number of different levels? And I gotta say, looking at 2022, it has been a phenomenal freaking year. It really has. I feel so fortunate on so many levels. Personally, my fiance hasn't gotten tired of me yet and has not called off the wedding. So that is fantastic. I've got a fantastic relationship with our son, and he's progressing and becoming a great human. So that's awesome to see. Athletically, I did a number of races, set a couple of PRs, including running a marathon with my brother, which we haven't actually done a marathon together since 2017. So we set a Welle Brothers PR in the Twin Cities Marathon. That was great. And then professionally, it's been a fantastic year as well. I've doubled my speaking business this year, got some fantastic coaching clients, published another book, and it's just been unbelievable. And I just am flooded with such a tremendous sense of gratitude when I talk about some of these different things. And I'll just keep it to strictly the professional side of things right now, because one of the biggest things that I think about when I reflect on this year and I look at some of the engagements and some of the things that I was fortunate to do from a speaking standpoint, two of them really stand out as far as just particularly impactful speaking engagements that I had. One of them was for an organization called League of Minnesota Cities, where I got to do the closing keynote for the conference up in Duluth, Minnesota. Even though I'm back to traveling around a lot and probably spending a little bit more time in Colorado than I am in Minnesota, Minnesota's a state that I'm always going to call home. I will always be a Minnesotan, and it will always be home to me. And League of Minnesota Cities is a league of elected officials all around the state of Minnesota. And to be able to come in and to be able to do the closing keynote with 500-ish people that are fundamentally shaping the small towns like Albany, Minnesota, where I was born and raised, and to be able to provide an impactful message to that group was just so meaningful to me, and I felt so fortunate to be able to do it. So that was one that stood out. And then the other one just happened a couple of months ago, where I got to speak for NDSU, North Dakota State University, the Bison football team. And I'm sure that might probably sound kind of strange to you because I don't do a lot of speaking for athletic teams now, but way back in the day, way back in 1969, my dad played football for NDSU, won a national championship long before they started winning national championships darn near every year. And you probably know the story that unfortunately he passed away a few years ago. But one of his proudest accomplishments all the way through his entire life was not just winning a national championship with NDSU in football, but also some of the relationships that he had that he formed in the trenches with some of the players that he got to play with, and really carrying that through and going back to Fargo for football games. And just really what that meant to him. So to be able to speak to the football team, which is just something that I remember saying to my dad before he passed. I remember saying, Dad, someday I'm going to speak for the NDSU football team. And of course, he was kind of like, yeah, whatever, kid, good luck with that. Because I had no idea how I was going to do it. And this was a bunch of years ago. And to be able to see that come full circle was just unbelievably impactful and meaningful to me. So when I talk about some of these things, one of the things that also feels like it was just yesterday, but in reality, it was probably 6-7 years ago when I was just getting started as a speaker. And I think about this engagement like League of Minnesota Cities that I got to do up in Duluth. And I think back to the times where I was just getting started in my speaking business, and I was driving in the cold of Minnesota in the dark at 6:30 in the morning for a morning speaking engagement that I was doing for free, and was deep in credit card debt, had no idea how I was going to get my speaking business going. And I remember going through those times and thinking, like, what am I doing here? Like, is this ever going to get better? Is this ever going to get easier? Like, is this ever going to pay off for me at some point? Like, is this supposed to be this hard? And I only bring that up, and that this is why I'm always so passionate about if anybody reaches out, whether they're interested in, hey, I'm thinking about writing this book, or hey, I would love to kind of jump into the speaking business or the coaching business or otherwise. I will always take time to try to help these people, regardless of where they're at in the journey, because I still remember those struggles that I had with, like they were yesterday, literally. I remember recording videos like this where I had bad video and bad lighting and bad audio and worse hair than I do now. I remember all of these things, and I remember going through some of those struggles. And I think obviously going through some of those struggles that are an inevitable part of the process, regardless of what you're working towards, makes it so much more impactful and meaningful when you finally get to the other side of it. And as you're thinking about some of these things, again, I have no idea what 2022 has looked like for you or what you're looking at doing in 2023 or beyond. But if you're at a point where you're struggling with some things right now, it can just be very basic human psychology and tendency to want to compare our current struggles with other people's successes. Meaning that you didn't necessarily see me driving in the cold and the dark and the winter of Minnesota to speak to 10 people in a church basement for free when I was deep in debt. Like, you don't see those struggles a lot of times on social media and on different things. And I guess I just bring that up, and that if you're struggling with anything right now, and if you're looking out at anyone and you're comparing your current struggles to their current successes, what I would actually encourage you to do is, doesn't have to be me, but it can be anybody. Reach out to that person and just say, hey, if you're interested in potentially succeeding or achieving in whatever area they're in, say, hey, how did you get started? What was your start? What were some of your struggles like? And I'll bet you they'll probably share the equivalent of me going and speaking to 10 people in a church basement for free when I couldn't even pay my bills. They'll share something like that. And it doesn't have to be a misery loves company type of thing, but it should actually give you some confidence that if you are struggling with anything right now, or you feel like you should just be a little bit farther along in the process, that it's okay, that you'll get there at some point. Who knows exactly when it'll be, but it will happen. And that should actually give you some confidence and some belief that what you are experiencing is not unique to you. It doesn't make you weak or broken or less than or anything else. It just means you're in the process of putting in the reps and the inevitable part of struggle that comes from trying to accomplish or trying to achieve anything meaningful or anything worthwhile. And it's not that the struggles ever necessarily go away. Like, I'm going to have plenty of them in my business, and I'll have plenty of them personally and athletically as well. Like, those things will always be there. They might look a little different depending on where you're at and kind of how the things are progressing. But the fact of the matter is that they will always be there. And it is that part of leaning into that part of the journey that I think makes the destination and makes some of these things, some of these accomplishments that I'm sure you have, seem a little bit more impactful, a little bit more meaningful, and you're a little bit more grateful for them. So I sincerely hope that you had a fantastic 2022. Thank you for being here. I want to wish you all the best going into 2023. Keep outperforming, and as always, wishing you the best of health, happiness, and high performance. Have a great day.